If you're anything like me, history was not your strong point in school. I was not a fan of history. I was more of a math buff myself. But today I am sitting with MJ Slate, who has loved U.S. history for a long time, and I'm going to let her share that story with us today. Welcome to the Coffee and Kidlit Show. I love to sit down with other children's book authors and just talk about their journey, talk about their experiences through publishing, and about their books and what inspired it. So happy to be here. If you like this kind of content, please hit the like button and follow along. MJ, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, so
Yeah.
unlike you, I hated math. I have always struggled with math. But history, writing, English, all that has always just come naturally to me. So
Yeah, and I will say the older I get, the more interested I am in history. So it's something that's kind of grabbing my attention a lot lately.
yeah.
So just give us a little bit of your background, who you are, and what you're into, and yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, so I started writing when I was about 9 or so. So I've been writing for basically as long as I can remember. I am a mom of 3. My husband and I have been married for almost 10 years now. So we're big family, lots of fun, lots of
Yeah.
chaos. But yeah, like I said, history has always kind of been, um, it came naturally to me. I grew up as a military brat, moved all over the world, and it was a way to connect with the location that we were living in. Learning about the history where we were, and Texas has always been home. So for me, we we made our home here, and just it's a way to connect with the history.
And where are you from originally?
I say Texas. My parents are from kind of different areas, and but we always came back to Texas, and I've lived here
Okay.
now for 15-20 years.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And you said you've been married for almost 10 years. I just had my 10th anniversary
Oh,
last month.
happy
Um,
anniversary.
yeah, so we've been married about the same
Yeah.
length of time. That's interesting. Um, so I was reading a little bit of your bio,
Hmm.
and you kind of give the story of how you sort of gained this interest in U.S. history. Could you just share that story with us?
Sure. So, um, I was 9 years old when the attack on the World Trade Center happened, 9/11, and it as a way to process it, I was old enough to know what happened, to understand something bad was going on, but still young enough to not really have not really be able to do anything about it. And so in trying to process that, I started gathering all of the newspaper clippings I could find, the news reels and everything, and I ended up writing. I don't have it anymore, but it's a scrapbook like this thick, and I would glue the newspaper articles in there, and I ended up writing this whole story about what happened, and it sort of brought on this, hey, I really like taking the facts and this story and then writing it down, um, and it sort of it kind of spiraled from there, I guess.
Hmm.
I jumped from journalism to writing, blog content for other people. And then, I've always kind of written ever since then. I've tried to dabble in fantasy and, other kinds of stories, but I always seem to go back to this historical, factual, nonfiction sort of content, and then paired with my love of history. I have a degree in history, and then was trying to figure out how am I going to use that, in a career. And so it's sort of pairing those together. That's how I ended up here.
That is really interesting. And I just want to share with anyone who's watching this, my internet is really acting up today. So I'm hoping we don't lose a connection, but I apologize for that in advance. And maybe you've already seen a little bit of that, but hopefully it'll correct itself as we go along. So it was kind of all based on the events of 9/11 as a 9-year-old. And I can't imagine the thoughts that must have been going through your head as a child. I was in my early 20s when that happened, and I remember it well. I was in college at the time. But, for you to put together all of these newspaper clippings and just sort of a collage of things that were happening during that time, it is a shame that you still don't have that book. That would be really fun to dig through and
back.
see some of your writings. And yeah.
But
it's just amazing that all of that sort of propelled you into even studying history in college.
Yeah, it definitely did. Just there's some, so history, it's not just dates, right? And that's kind of where I think, like, people like you who struggle in history and don't like it, a lot of the time it's presented, just memorize the dates, the names, places. But it's so much more than that. There's a story. These are real people. They had real emotions. Every action that they, everything that they did had a consequence. And so it really is a story. That history is a story. And so looking at it like that, I think that's part of why I got into it so much. Because in trying to make sense of 9/11 and what happened, putting that into a story made it make sense to me. And history is the same. It's a story.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like you said, it's so much more than that because these were actual events and actual people that lived. And I think some of the most interesting parts of history to me is the everyday lives and sort of how that was affected by these different events that happened throughout history. So yeah, really interesting. So you've written this series, or you're in the middle of writing this series called Kids Have Questions Too. And I know you have 2 books out at this point. You're working on number 3, and we'll get into those more specifically here in a few minutes. But just tell us what sort of inspired this series and what got you into writing them.
Sure. So, like I said, I actually started writing blog content for other companies, and it was nonfiction. And then when my daughter came home from school, she was in kindergarten, and she came home from school and she goes, "Mom, I asked my teacher today what the Constitution was." I guess she, between me talking about it and, just hearing it in school or seeing it in her textbook, she said she had asked her teacher what the Constitution was. And her teacher said they weren't going to learn about it. And that
is it just because it was the wrong grade for it, or what was
I think it was a little bit of a the wrong grade, but also we're just not even gonna go there. That's too political.
Oh, wow.
It was a combination of the two, I think. But I have 3 kids at this point now, and I've learned that if you don't answer the question, at least to some degree, they're going to keep asking, or they will try to get that information from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So when she told me the story that, she asked her teacher and her teacher said they weren't going to learn about it, to me, that's not really an acceptable answer. Even if they're 5 or 6, you say it's one of our country's founding documents, and we can look at it later, or, here's a book. This is what it looks like. You kind of answer them in an age appropriate manner for sure, but you still answer them. And so me and my, my love of history, and, I love America. So like, to me, it was like, oh, no, you have to answer this question. And so in trying to figure out how to answer it for her, I came up with this idea. Well, I've been writing for a long time. If she has this question, I'm sure other kids her age have this question. So what, how can I make something happen here? And so that's sort of how the book came about. And that's why it's written for kids, because at the time there wasn't any kids books, younger kids books. So, there were some like middle school level chapter books, 4th, 5th grade level books. But as far as picture books for younger kids, there wasn't anything at the time. There is now. I don't know if I started the trend, but there is now several books like this. But at the time, there wasn't anything. So I figured, well, I can write. I know my history. This is something I love to do. Why don't I write it? And that's sort of how it came about.
Well, I really love the idea behind it, because it is kind of promoting the Constitution and other parts of sort of the framework of the U.S. government to a younger crowd that traditionally may not have been introduced to it yet. And I don't know how connected you are to the homeschool community at all, but I just really see it as invaluable to homeschoolers, because they can start to explore these things at any age. If a kid shows any interest in, how the government was formed, or the history behind the United States, they can start digging into that just based on their own interests. And so just really, I think, valuable content that you have. And it's not your traditional storyline that picture books have, but it is kind of more informational at a level that younger kids can understand and grasp, I think. So anyways, what I wanted to show here, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. If it'll come up here. There we go. There was a portion near the back of your book, and I'm just going to read part of it here. The men who wrote the Constitution in 1787 designed a completely new form of government that has worked better than the founding fathers would have hoped. And a little bit of a deep question here for you, but my question for you was, do you think that still stands today, given the state of where our country is? Do you think it's still true, and why or why not?
Sure. So not to get to, political being left or right, but factually, yes, I believe it to be true. The framework is there. I think over the years, we have allowed certain people within the government, and not just recently, 100 years ago, even 1913 was a big year. But we have, over the years, we have allowed the government to have more and more power that actually, when the country was founded, when they wrote the Constitution, when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, what were considered the Federalists were the ones who wanted the bigger government, and the Anti-Federalists wanted even less government. So over the years, we've actually gotten further and further away from what the founding fathers wanted, what they had set up for. And if we don't know what the Constitution says, if we don't know what is written and what was intended, then it's really easy to go, oh yeah, the government can have control of that. They can do this, they can do that. And, there's always going to be power hungry people. Doesn't matter time, place, country, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be those people who will take advantage. If you give them power, they're going to take it. And over the years, I think we have given up some of what the founding fathers did not want us to give up. So I guess the short answer is, yes, I believe the framework is there, but if we don't pay attention, we're going to lose it. And after they wrote the Constitution, Benjamin Franklin even came out and they said, what'd you guys come up with? Well, a republic, if you can keep it. So I think, and that's often misquoted as a democracy, if you can keep it. He said a republic, if you can keep it. So I think the framework is there, but we have to make sure we keep it.
So it was really designed to be sort of a small government, but giving more freedom to the individual states to sort of set up their own laws. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So one part that really hit me, I remember in high school memorizing the preamble. It's not something I recite on a regular basis, I'll be quite honest with you. So I had forgotten.
You don't go around singing the Schoolhouse Rock song?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Just me, okay.
But just reading it in your book really struck me of how important it is. And I just thought, it would be nice to read it. If you have it memorized, feel free to recite it for us. But I just thought we could read it out loud and then sort of get your viewpoint on that as well. So would you like to read it or would you have me read it?
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Go ahead.
Why don't you read it since you don't have it memorized?
Okay. Well, I've got it right here on the screen, so I'm going to read it to you. This is the preamble of the U.S. Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. Just really powerful words just in that small section of the Constitution. What do you think we need as a country to sort of continue to form a more perfect union as it states here? What are your thoughts?
I mean, it goes back to it. Would you have been able to recite that without it being in front of you?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not me.
So, and I don't know the exact number, but I guarantee you go outside and ask 5 of your neighbors and maybe 1 will know it. Right?
I think very few people even know what it is.
I agree.
And that's the scary.
And that's the scary part. And so when I was in college, one of the things I had intended to do and didn't finish going for was I wanted to teach. I wanted to teach high school. So I took all the classes in order to teach, just didn't get my certification. But in one of those classes are textbook for the class was the 11th grade history teacher's edition of the textbook. So it had all the notes and stuff in the margins. And when I went back and looked at that book, the Constitution took up one paragraph. And I really believe that if you don't know it, there's no way you're going to know if something goes against it or, so John Jay, he was the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. And he said, it's our duty as citizens to read the Constitution, sorry, I have it over here, to study the Constitution and to teach it in order to know what it says, to defend our rights, and to assert them when they're being violated. So that's, a paraphrased quote there, but, so how are you supposed to defend it if you don't know what it says? Mm. And and I don't want to say, like memorization isn't everything, but to a point, you do need to know what it says. And if you don't, how are you supposed to know what a more perfect union is? Hmm. So I think we need to start there. I think I think in schools do the students an injustice in not teaching it. And, it's history, and a lot of people think, it can't be used everywhere. But if you vote, don't you want to know what you're voting for, if it's constitutional or not? Mm-hmm. If it should be with the states, if it should be with the federal government. So it does have an effect on us in our daily lives, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, just to your point, I think a lot of people vote according to their opinion, mm-hmm. not so much based on how it stands, with our Constitution and with these frameworks of our government. So what would you say to parents of kids today to just encourage them to sort of nurture this love of U.S. history and encourage these things in them?
Well, so for me, we moved around a lot, and a lot of what we did when we moved around is we would go see the local, historical sites. So like here, I'm in Central Texas, we go to the Alamo, take my kids, show them, have them see it, have them watch the reenactments, get them, if they're involved, they're going to be more interested. Sometimes reading it on in a book is not interesting. I like to read. So my, that is how I learn, though. I'm very much a text-based learner. But like my son, he is very hands-on. He's not going to sit there and read a paragraph. He can. Is he going to retain that information? Probably not. But my husband either. There's mm-hmm. plenty of documentaries and things like of that nature that you can watch if you like video, or even historical fiction. So movies like The Patriot. I don't know if you want your 6-year-old to watch it, but I mean, I think, I don't remember when that movie came out, but I don't remember a time when I didn't watch that movie, right. And but there's lots of them. So even historical fiction, movies, books, and those like live
Schoolhouse Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock. So yeah, any way, and I mean, your kids, so how they absorb information the best, and that those are some ways to kind of catch their attention.
Yeah, that's great information, and I think like you said, going out and visiting some of these historical sites and
Mhm.
seeing it, being able to see it hands on, not hands on, but with their own eyes, and touch things and just experience it all around them.
Mhm.
Um, how impactful that can be for young kids. That's really great. You lived in Germany for a while. What age range were you
I
there?
was actually in Germany during 9/11. So
Okay.
I was in Germany from, oh goodness, maybe about 6 or 7 to about 10. So I was young,
Okay.
but I do it made an impact on me. I guess my stepmom's from Germany, and even my husband's family is from Germany. So we still have that connection.
Okay. Yeah. And did you do some of the same things there? Did you visit some of these historical sites
Oh yeah,
there?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We
That's good.
actually the town that we grew up in was was probably hundreds of years old. So there was history. Our house had seen a lot. The house that we lived in had been through a lot. So just
Okay.
you can find history anywhere.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be at the Alamo if you're in San Antonio. It can be anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. So we have kind of two portions of this interview. We talk about MJ's books and her inspiration behind those books, and here in just a minute we're going to get more into the publishing side of what MJ did for her books. And before we get there, I just want to invite anyone who's watching this video to download my first time children's book author's roadmap. You can do that at launchmissioncreative.com/roadmap. It's a free PDF, walks you through 3 essential questions that you need to answer before you even hire your illustrator or move into any further publishing steps beyond the manuscript itself. So please go launchmissioncreative.com/roadmap and download that free PDF guide. So MJ, you actually illustrated your own books. So
Good.
you're an author illustrator, author/illustrator, I guess, and just wanted to kind of get your side of the story and why you chose to do that, and what was kind of your experience in doing that. What did you learn along the way?
Okay. I tend to be a very frugal person. So it sort of started out as I didn't really have the budget, nor did I want to spend the budget on an illustrator.
Yeah.
I've always liked to draw and do kind of artsy things. I mean, even that scrapbook I made when I was 9 about 9/11 was, filled with pictures and things like that. So I've always liked to draw. I've never considered myself an artist. But I wanted to, I guess I wanted to do it justice, but I also wanted to have control over it. I had an idea for what goes on this page, what goes on that page, and I liked the idea of being in control of the illustrations as well. So the first book took me a really long time. I have gotten faster
Yeah.
illustrating these, but um, and my art style tends to be sort of, I don't even know what you call it, like realistic clip art sort of. It's not clip art because it's all hand drawn.
Right.
But it's not just realistic. It's not necessarily what you usually see. But yeah, a lot of it came from not wanting to spend the money but also wanting the control over it. And yeah, so.
Just showing some of the pages here from your book, and this is what does the U.S. Constitution say? So this is book number
one.
Yeah. And then the second one is, what's the title of that one?
What is the Bill of Rights?
What is the Bill of Rights? Yeah.
So
so you mentioned you've got kind of this, you called it clip art style, but they're definitely, you can tell that they're sort of hand drawn, which, I think that just adds a lot of character to it that you don't typically get with clip art. I wouldn't call it clip art at all.
Okay. Well,
what I like about it is that, with children's books, you would typically have a full spread, full page illustration. And what you have done are simplified spot illustrations that just support the text itself. And you really kind of bring the text out to let it speak for itself. And I think, for someone who's just getting started and like you, they don't really want to invest in their own into an illustrator. They want to attempt to illustrate and draw everything themselves. I think that's a fantastic idea. Just, try to keep it simple. Try to just create some spot illustrations like this that support the story. And I just want to bring up this comment that we had from Erin Moran. She says, "Good morning, MJ and Travis, and thanks for this presentation. MJ, were you always an illustrator? And can you tell me what tools you use to illustrate your books?" Thank you, Erin, for commenting.
Yeah, so like I said, I've always liked art, but I've never, until the books, I've never really done it in any sort of professional manner. But as far as what do I use to illustrate, I start with a sketchbook and a pencil, nothing fancy. I do have, I believe it's called a drawing tablet. All it is, I basically sketch them by hand, and then I scan them in and sort of digitalize my lines and then add the color. And the drawing tablet almost works just like a mouse. There's no graphics. It's not an iPad. I think it cost me $30.
Are you using a stylus pen?
Yeah. So I actually have it here.
Yeah.
So it's just that's all it is.
I believe that's a Wacom tablet. I have one very similar on my desk here that I use for my work as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like the simplicity of it. I was never really a techie kind of person. That would be my brother. He's graphic designer, has all the graphic tech and everything. But no, I like the simplicity of it. Like I said, it almost works like a mouse, and I add the color once it gets onto the computer, and I just use believe it's called Autodesk Sketchbook. It's just a drawing program. So nothing fancy, I do like that that I do it this way, because it's, a lot of the time you hear, oh, well, I can't afford an illustrator. Well, neither could I when I started. So part of it was I wanted to be able to do it on a budget, and I, made it happen. And now almost for the third time, still using the same process.
Yeah. And I think that's really encouraging to a lot of authors out there, that you don't have to hire an illustrator. There are other ways around it. You can attempt to illustrate yourself, just like you have done, MJ, and think about maybe your kids or maybe a family member. How can you get them involved? And I saw a post actually just today on Facebook, and I think we're in the same Facebook groups. This lady had done almost like a quilt square really detailed image. If you haven't seen it yet, go into that Facebook group. Jay Moletsky is the admin for it,
Okay.
and check that out. I forget who it was that posted it, but just an extremely detailed image of this like quilt fabric square that she's sort of trying out to see if it would work as an illustration
How
medium
cool.
for her book. It's really interesting.
Okay.
So just that would be my encouragement to authors out there to really just think outside the box for how you can get it done, and it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg to have your book illustrated. It is the most expensive part of publishing children's books, and so
Absolutely.
if you can avoid it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well deserved. The illustrations
Right.
that you pay for, they're definitely worth it, and the time, yeah, like you said, I have the spot illustrations. Just the time it takes me to do those spot illustrations, doing a whole spread would take me way longer, and just the intricacies in that. So that cost is well deserved.
Absolutely.
Sometimes either you don't necessarily, that maybe is not the illustration style that you're looking for, or you don't have that budget. I mean, if you look at like Shel Silverstein, it's all like pen drawings. There's not even any color. I don't think any of his have color. Or I don't know. I don't think this is how the illustrations are, but like Eric Carle, it almost looks like it's painted paper cut out into shapes.
Yeah.
For some of the like brown bear. Sorry, I still have little kids.
Yeah, that's okay.
But so yeah, there are ways you can get creative with the illustrations, I think. They don't
and
so much.
and you can keep, like we say, keep them simple. We just had Ron Karas on the show a few weeks back, and he asked his illustrator to just keep everything simple because that cuts down on the cost. If everything has a white background, for instance, and you don't have such detailed environment, that's another way you can just cut down on the costs of things. So that's really great. So what is there any other advice that you would give authors out there who are maybe interested in illustrating their own books? What would you have any other words?
Don't pull a me and give yourself extra time. So my hope was to have had the third book out already this month, and I always do this, and I budget less time than I actually need to get the illustrations done. So if you're illustrating your own books, it will take you at least twice as long as you think it will.
Yeah.
So just that is something that I have experienced a few times. So but yeah, I mean, illustrating your own books in a way, the illustrations can be just as rewarding as the words. Like, how do I explain that? Like, for me, I've always, like I said, I've always loved art, but I've never really done it in any sort of professional capacity. So for me to be, like, yeah, I'm an author. Okay, so maybe that's not totally unexpected if you knew me when I was, 15, but to say that I've also illustrated my own books, that's kind of cool. So, if you're interested in illustrating your own books, I say go for it. Maybe budget a little extra time.
Yeah. And that's funny because I get that a lot from working with authors who have hired an illustrator, that it always takes longer than you would expect, even with professional illustrators. So obviously, yes, if you're doing it yourself, plan for more time. If you're hiring, plan for more time.
Yes. Always plan for more time.
Yes. Yes. Don't try to rush it. Leave yourself plenty of time.
Yeah.
And that's something to think about too. Like, how long would it take for you to illustrate your own book, and how valuable is that time? Is it worth,
Yeah.
just paying someone to illustrate? That's kind of the question you need to ask yourself, and
Absolutely.
come up with your own answer. So MJ, tell us what's next. I know there's a book 3. So tell us about that, and if there's anything else that you want to share, any sneak peeks, feel free
Okay.
to do so.
Well, like I said, I had hoped I would be done with book 3. I'm not. So book 3 is coming. That one is what led to the Declaration of Independence. So chronologically backtracking, but it kind of like one of those prequels. You have the whole story and then you get the prequel later. So that's coming next. Would like to say I am going to have it out before Christmas, but budget more time.
Yeah.
But and then I have quite a few books in this series still in the works. I have another, let's see, this is 3. I have another 4 planned out. So I don't see this series ending anytime soon. I've been toying with the idea of creating a course to go along with the book. Like I said, my husband and my son learned better through video. So I was playing with that idea. I'm still sort of testing the waters, see if it's the right thing to do. But, getting that idea out there and getting feedback. So that might be coming in the next year or so.
So this will be like an online video course for students.
Yes. Yeah. And so like the books, they're geared toward kids, but one thing I didn't expect is I get adults saying like, oh, this book is great because, who wants to go through all the language in the Constitution? Who wants to read that whole thing? That's boring. So I get that a lot about the books, that like, oh, I'm just going to get it for myself because I need to know this. So I've been kind of toying with the same sort of idea for a course where kids can be interactive and understand it, but it could work for, everybody. But that's my plan for now.
Yeah. I mentioned homeschooling earlier. I think that's, a very valuable resource for homeschooling families and co-ops. But at the same time, families with kids in traditional schools, if they are interested in these things before they get to the grade where they actually start talking about it, what a great way to just introduce it to them and get them excited about it, and go, like you said, go to these different locations across the country and learn about our country, our great country. MJ, it's been really great to have you on the show. We do have one more question from Erin. She says, self-published or traditional? Any tips? Do you have any comments about that?
Yeah. So I actually started by creating my own publishing company. So I guess in a way I'm a little bit of a control freak. I like to be in control of my creative projects and stuff. So when you go the traditional route, you lose some of that control. They usually get the say of what goes on your cover. They, their editors are going to have the say. Usually you don't get to pick your illustrator. The publishing company usually has some sort of contract with an illustrator. And I wanted to be in control of the project. And honestly, I didn't want to ask permission, hey, please publish my book. I didn't want to do that. So I looked into it, but I guess I decided very quickly that I didn't want to go down that path.
Mhm.
So all for self-publishing, but to call it self-publishing maybe isn't the best thing. There's so many moving parts. You do kind of need the editor, depending on if you want to illustrate yourself. You'll need an illustrator, or like I know you do, like book cover design and stuff, right? So you might need that. So it's more of a indie publishing as opposed to self-publishing. The more eyes on it before it goes out, the better. I don't know if I would ever go traditional, just because I do like to have a little bit of control over it. Indie publishing can be expensive on your part. But I guess I'm a little bit of an entrepreneur at heart. So for me to look at this as a business, like this, right up my alley, this is what I was meant to do. So I hope that.
And I'll just back that up. Yeah. I'll just back that up and say that as an author illustrator, there is sort of a benefit to that. A lot of traditional publishers are more interested sometimes in someone who does both sides of it. What they don't want authors to do is hire their own illustrator and then try to submit their books with somebody else illustrating. They want to sort of be in control if you're not illustrating yourself. And also, just don't fall into the trap of hybrid or vanity publishers who require you to pay money up front. A real publisher will not require you to pay a dime.
Absolutely.
They pay you in advance. And then once that advance is covered by their own income, so to speak, then hopefully the book reaches a point where that you then start receiving a royalty based on the sales. So that's actually how publishing is set up. And so if you run across a publisher who is asking for money, run.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they don't often, hybrid and traditional, publishers, they often don't do the marketing. So you're stuck doing your own marketing regardless.
That's right.
So if you're paying a hybrid publisher to publish your book, you're still stuck doing the marketing. Traditional publisher will give you the advance, but you're still stuck doing the marketing. If you do it yourself, you're still stuck doing the marketing.
That's exactly right. You're self-publishing no matter what.
Right.
Maybe not. It's
You're self-marketing.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. So MJ, it's been really great talking to you. Thank you so much for being on the show. I want to give you a chance to just share how people can find your books and how they can reach out to you.
Sure. So you can find me pretty much anywhere as author MJ Slate. I'm not super active on social media, but I'm on, Facebook, Instagram. I have a Twitter. I'm on Telegram. I'm around on social media. I'm at author MJ Slate pretty much everywhere. My website is authormjslate.com. So I'll post. I try to post blog articles and stuff about like teaching history and different events in history and things like that. So I try to keep it factual in that respect, but you can also find my books there. My books are on Amazon, anywhere online that you can buy books online. So
that's great. That's great. And so again, the website was authormjslate.com.
Correct.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
I also have links to your books in the description below for Amazon. So if anyone is interested in the books, you can either get them at MJ's website or follow those links to Amazon and purchase her books. Really great educational material. Once again, MJ, thank you so much. And thank you, Aaron, for commenting. That's really helpful. If anyone is watching the replay, feel free to leave comments and I'll be happy to answer them as soon as I can and even pass it on to the guests as needed. And it's just really great to have you watching and interacting. So thank you so much. And I want to invite everyone back in 2 weeks. I will have Chelsea Tornetto on the show. She's the author of God Made You Too. And so that's going to be a really interesting conversation with Chelsea. I'm looking forward to that. I believe it's the 12th of December. Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern time, just like every other episode. So I'm looking forward to that. Thanks so much for watching. And in the meantime, go and write the book. Bye.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.